All right, let's just jump right in. Today, we're exploring something that is, honestly, deeply personal for a lot of us. There's a specific kind of person out there whose brain just never truly shuts off. They notice way too much, and it's not because they want to be nosy, but because they literally cannot stop. So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack the hidden psychological weight of noticing every single tiny detail in social interactions. It's a phenomenon that goes way beyond just being observant. It's what we call the burden of knowing. Think about it for a second. Do you notice too much? Like, do you constantly catch that one quick glance that avoids you for just a split second? Or maybe you hear the absolute smallest shift in someone's tone of voice, or you feel a pause in a conversation that's, just half a beat too late. Society loves to label this extreme perception as a superpower, right? Like it's this amazing gift of intuition or some massive social advantage. But if you look at the psychology, it reveals a completely different reality. Because for the person actually experiencing it, yeah, it doesn't feel like a superpower at all. Honestly, it feels a lot more like an invisible trap that's just quietly tightening from the inside. Okay, let's dive into this. Behavioral psychology actually shows us that this intense hyper-awareness isn't just you overthinking things. It actually stems from two very distinct origins. First up, there's an inborn neurological structure, kind of like a built-in matrix error finder in your brain. And second, there's a psychological origin, one that's rooted in a much deeper, frankly painful childhood legacy of survival. Clinically, this is known as parentification. Let's look a little closer at that first group. If we go back to deep studies in evolutionary neuroscience from the 1990s, they show that about 15 to 20% of the global population has a brain built exactly this way. To put that in perspective, that is 1 in 5 people who have a reticular activating system, or RAS, that basically acts like a background algorithm running 24/7, constantly scanning for incongruence. And here's the thing. They aren't scanning a room looking for joy. They're scanning for the mismatch between what someone is showing on the outside and the real energy they're carrying on the inside. If you fall into this 15 to 20%, I really want to validate you right now. This is absolutely not a mental illness. It's not some system error in your brain. You are a perfectly healthy, neurodivergent individual whose brain just happens to operate at a really, really high resolution. Now, what's incredibly interesting and heartbreaking, really, is that second origin, parentification. This happens when children are essentially forced to reverse roles and become the parents of their own parents. These were kids who grew up around adults who were maybe too unstable, too fragile, or just entirely unable to manage their own emotions. So their intense emotional radar, it wasn't a gift. It was developed purely just to survive childhood. They were constantly scanning the room to figure out, okay, do I need to step in as a little therapist for mom right now? Do I need to be the peacemaker for dad? They never got to have a silly, carefree childhood. Instead, they had to act as these little emotional air conditioners for the entire family. And the sad part is, they usually carry that lifelong, totally draining habit of automatically soothing unstable adults right into their own adult lives today. So when your brain operates at this incredibly high level of intake, it creates a series of very specific, deeply exhausting experiences. We've identified 5 main signs of this burden. The first one is honestly like watching a movie where the subtitles pop up before you hear the sound. Imagine you ask a coworker to grab coffee. Instantly, your radar flips on. You catch that tiny, almost invisible tightening of their shoulders. You see their eyes dart away just for a second to clear a path for a lie. And you hear that half-second shift in their breath. Boom, you've immediately read the micro-expressions of their rejection. But because of social norms, you're forced to just stand there, stuck in place, plastering on a sympathetic smile while they finish delivering their perfectly polite, totally fake rejection script. The subtitle already gave away the ending, but you still have to painfully wait through the whole show. The second sign? It's being tortured by the secondhand smoke of emotion. Picture this for a second. You step into an elevator with 2 coworkers for a quick 1-minute ride. Nobody says a single word. Everyone is just staring down at their phones. On the surface, it looks completely quiet, but inside your brain, it is absolutely deafening. You're absorbing the unspoken anger in the air, the tight jaw of the guy in front of you, the heavy, restrained breathing of the woman behind you. When those doors finally open, they just walk their separate ways. Fine. But you step out feeling completely emotionally poisoned. You're totally drained, and it's not because you worked too hard that morning, but because you were literally forced to digest all that heavy nonverbal noise from the people around you. Which brings us to the third sign, the curse of the canary in the coal mine. Back in the 19th century, miners would use these highly sensitive canaries to detect toxic gas way before humans could even smell it. Well, hyperperceptive people are basically the canaries in our social relationships. You're always the very first person to smell the scent of a toxic relationship, or to clock that manipulative new coworker while everyone else is still totally charmed by them. And because you're the canary, you do your job, you warn your friends. But what happens? Because they don't have concrete, undeniable proof yet, they immediately label you. They say, oh, you're just being too sensitive, or you're just jealous. So you get pushed to the edge, and you're forced to stand there completely helplessly, watching the wreckage unfold exactly the way your radar had been screaming about for months. It's brutal. Then there is the fourth sign, becoming water in a container. Because you pay such insanely close attention to what makes other people happy or upset, you end up activating this really cruel self-editing skill. You become a master shapeshifter. You shrink your energy down and speak softly for quiet people, and then you turn around and immediately raise your energy to match the loud ones. You'll agonize over a simple text to a suspicious boss, polishing every single comma just to make absolutely sure there is zero space for misunderstanding. You basically pour yourself into whatever container is presented in order to please everyone. But at the end of the day, when your front door closes and there's no container left to fill, you look in the mirror completely exhausted and you realize you've completely lost your original innocent shape. And the fifth sign is going through social system freezes. I want you to think of your cognitive memory kind of like a computer's RAM. When it fills up with millions of tiny useless junk files, the computer doesn't break, it just freezes up so it can clear itself out. The exact same thing happens to you. You can go out for a genuinely fun hangout with friends for 4 hours. Zero drama, just good laughs. But the second you get home, drop your bag, and lock the door, you suddenly just go blank. You literally have to sit completely empty in a dark room for a full 30 minutes. Your family might see you and think you're depressed, but you aren't sad at all. Your brain is just screaming to dump all the useless nonverbal noise it was forced to record all day long. The waitress's frown, the avoidant eyes on the train, just to get your internal system up and running again. So when you look at these 5 signs of the burden all laid out, the subtitles, the smoke, the canary, the water, and the freezes, you start to realize they create a very, very cruel paradox. You've spent your entire youth reading the absolute smallest footnotes in other people's lives. You're the one who carefully stitches back together the torn souls of this world. You know exactly when your best friend needs a tight hug and exactly when they just need to be left alone. And yet, despite reading everyone else's footnotes so perfectly, it feels like no one in this life even bothers to read your biggest headlines. And that brings us to a really profound truth about the cost of caring. Your deep loneliness, it doesn't actually come from being alone in an empty room. Not at all. It comes from standing in the middle of a massive, noisy crowd, seeing straight into everyone's hearts and trying to protect all of them, only to realize with absolute horror that none of them are truly looking back at you. People just assume you're strong. They assume you're sensitive enough to just heal yourself, so they turn you into their safe shelter, their personal emotional trash bin to dump all their sadness into. But when the massive storms finally arrive in your own life, you look up and realize, wow, I don't even have a roof to stand under. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. There is no magic pill that will suddenly make you notice less. It just doesn't exist. You can't ask someone with perfect 20/20 hearing to just stop hearing sounds, right? So the goal here is not to change the way you take information in. The real secret, the crucial point is, the goal is to change how you respond to what has already entered your mind. You have to figure out how to shift this incredible high-res perception from something that constantly drains your energy into something that actually serves your own life. Okay, so how do we actually do that? Let's move to these 2 highly practical steps you can quite literally start using today. Step 1, cut the cord between observation and intervention. When you see a coworker frowning or clearly acting like a total mess, your radar is going to sound the alarm. Resist it. Seriously, just acknowledge in your mind, okay, they aren't doing well right now, and let it stop right there. Allow them to be a mess without needing you to jump in and play the savior. And step 2, accept the broken things that do not belong to you. If you warned a friend about a toxic situation and they just brush it off, do not jump into the mud to save them. Sometimes their lesson is to walk through those broken pieces themselves. Your job is to stand safely on the shore and only reach out your hand when they truly explicitly call for help. Ultimately, if you take nothing else away from this explainer, I need you to remember that there is absolutely nothing wrong with your mind. You aren't just overthinking everything. You simply feel this world a lot more deeply than other people do. You're walking around viewing life through a lens with extremely high resolution. Please don't try to break it, and don't blame yourself for being different. So I want to leave you with this final important question to think about. Which of the 5 signs we covered today is costing you the most in your daily life? Leave a comment below with that exact sign so we can all share and connect with each other. And hey, if you know a friend who's also totally exhausted by the noise in their own mind, share this with them. It's time to stop trying to fix everything you see and start protecting the one holding the lens. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.